Most of us think we know the internet. It's a comfortable, familiar space. It's Google, it's social media, it's where we shop, learn, and connect with the people we care about. It feels like an extension of our public lives. But there's another version of it, a vast and hidden architecture that most people will and should never see. To understand the stories that follow, we first need to understand the terrain. First, you have the deep web. The name sounds ominous, but the reality is honestly quite mundane. The deep web constitutes the vast majority of the internet. Some estimates say as much as 95%. It's simply the collection of all the web pages that are not indexed by search engines like Google. Think about your online banking portal, your corporate intranet, your email inbox, or paywalled academic databases. These are all part of the deep web. They require specific logins or credentials, not because they are sinister, but because they are private. But within this massive, unindexed territory, a small, hidden corner exists that is something else entirely: the dark web. This is a part of the internet that has been intentionally and specifically hidden. You can only get there with special software like the Tor browser. Tor, which stands for the Onion Router, was ironically developed by the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory in the mid-1990s. Its purpose was to create a secure and anonymous way for intelligence operatives to communicate online. It works by wrapping a user's connection in multiple layers of encryption, like the layers of an onion, and bouncing it through a worldwide network of volunteer-operated servers. This process makes it nearly impossible to trace the connection back to its source. That level of anonymity can be a genuine lifeline. For journalists, human rights activists, and ordinary citizens living under oppressive regimes, the dark web is a vital tool for free speech and organization without fear of reprisal. But that same darkness, that same promise of being untraceable, also provides a perfect cover for the absolute worst of humanity. It's a place where forbidden goods, from narcotics to stolen data and twisted ideas, are bought, sold, and shared with a global audience. For a long time, the stories that crawled out of the dark web were brushed off as creepypastas or digital urban legends. Tales of live-streamed torture, hitmen for hire, and inescapable torment felt like exaggerated fiction designed to shock and scare. The line between myth and reality, however, has grown terrifyingly thin. Tonight, we're looking at 3 stories rooted in real, documented investigations that show the true horror lurking just a few clicks away. These aren't just legends, they are stark evidence that the darkest corners of the web have devastating and very real consequences. All the myths born from the dark web, the Red Room is probably the most chilling and persistent. If you haven't heard of it, the story goes that it's a hidden, interactive website where you can watch a person being tortured and even killed in a live stream. The concept is pure, distilled sadism. Viewers, using untraceable cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, can supposedly pay to direct the horror, choosing the weapons, issuing commands, and becoming active participants in a theater of ultimate cruelty. For years, this concept was treated as pure fiction, a digital ghost story. Cybersecurity experts and dark web researchers consistently argued that the idea was, at its core, technically unfeasible. The Tor network, for all its anonymizing power, is notoriously slow. The process of routing your data through multiple relays across the globe creates significant latency, making a stable, high-quality, real-time video stream, especially one with interactive elements and simultaneous cryptocurrency transactions, practically impossible to execute. Every site claiming to be a Red Room was eventually exposed as an elaborate scam, using pre-recorded video clips and clever web design to trick disturbed individuals out of their Bitcoin. It was a terrifying concept, but one you could safely file away as a myth. And as of today, that's what the Red Room remains, a legend. There has never been a single verified police case of a public, interactive, live-streamed murder room being discovered and shut down anywhere in the world. A popular story that circulated in 2015, which claimed a site had been dismantled in the Philippines and a victim rescued, has no credible sources, police reports, or public records to back it up. It appears to be another fabrication that fed into the growing mythos. But just because the legend isn't literally real doesn't mean the impulse behind it isn't. The depraved idea of interactive, monetized cruelty found its horrifying, real-world proof in the case of Peter Scully and his website Daisy's Destruction. Peter Scully, an Australian national, operated a sophisticated and deeply disturbing production house from the Philippines. While his site was not a red room where viewers could direct the violence in a live feed, what he did was arguably just as monstrous, if not more so. Scully created and sold videos of the most unspeakable torture and abuse, primarily targeting children. His business model was sickeningly innovative. Customers could pay for custom-made videos, essentially commissioning specific acts of torture to be filmed and delivered to them. He provided a menu of atrocities, and for the right price, he would carry them out. Scully's operation was brought down not by a single heroic raid, but by a painstaking international investigation. A Dutch police officer, a specialist in child exploitation cases, discovered one of Scully's horrific videos circulating online. He was able to identify a distinct brand of baby lotion in the background of the film. Through meticulous police work, he traced the lotion's packaging to the Philippines. This small detail was the first thread in unraveling Scully's entire network. Working with Filipino authorities, investigators eventually located his compound. What they found was a house of horrors. When they raided the property, they discovered a soundproofed room and evidence of his vile productions. The case of Peter Scully proved that the core of the Red Room horror, that anonymous individuals would pay good money to participate in and even direct someone else's suffering, wasn't a myth at all. That part was terrifyingly real. Scully wasn't just a monster acting alone, he was a content creator for a paying audience, a market of ghouls hidden in the web's deepest shadows. Hiring a contract killer feels like a trope straight out of a gangster movie, a concept totally removed from normal, everyday life. But on the dark web, this so-called service is marketed with the bland accessibility of any other online product. You can find dozens of sites with melodramatic, B-movie names like Besa Mafia or Sicilian Hitman, complete with price lists, tiered services, fake customer reviews, and online order forms. The menus are chillingly casual, offering everything from a simple beating to a clean murder or a staged accident. Now, let's be clear. Law enforcement agencies and cybersecurity researchers overwhelmingly agree that the vast majority of these sites are scams. They are run by clever, amoral fraudsters who prey on the homicidal and the desperate. They take untraceable Bitcoin payments from people evil enough to want someone dead, knowing full well they have no intention of carrying out the act. It's a morbidly brilliant scam when you think about it. Your customer is actively trying to commit conspiracy to murder, so who are they going to report the fraud to? For a long time, this was a small comfort, the idea that the intent was monstrous but the service itself was fake. But that doesn't mean these sites are harmless. The real threat isn't that you can successfully hire a killer online like ordering a pizza. It's that these marketplaces attract and embolden real people who genuinely want to see others dead, giving them a platform to act on their darkest impulses. The case of Stephen Allwine, a church elder, husband, and father from a suburb of St. Paul, Minnesota, is one of the most chilling examples. To his community, Allwine was a devout, mild-mannered man. But online, he adopted the name Dogdaygod. Using this pseudonym, he went on the dark web marketplace Besa Mafia and paid over $6,000 in Bitcoin to have his wife, Amy Allwine, murdered. He provided her name, address, and even a description of her car. But Besa Mafia was a scam. The weeks turned into months, and the hitman he had paid for never showed up. Prosecutors at his trial argued that after months of waiting for his online order to go through, Allwine's frustration and determination boiled over. He decided to do it himself. On November 13, 2016, Amy Allwine was found dead in her home from a gunshot wound. Stephen claimed she had taken her own life, but the forensic evidence told a different story. Investigators uncovered his online activities, his Dogdaygod alias, and his transactions with the fake Hitman site. The dark web didn't pull the trigger, but it served as an incubator for his murderous plot. It gave him a place to nurture his plan and take concrete, irreversible steps, creating a digital pathway from violent thought to violent action. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. This wasn't an isolated incident. More recently, in 2022, a well-regarded cardiologist from Alabama named James Wan pleaded guilty to a similar plot. Wan attempted to hire a hitman on a different dark website to murder a woman he had been romantically involved with, who was also his medical receptionist colleague. He sent about $8,000 in Bitcoin along with her name, address, license plate number, and a link to her Facebook profile. His instructions were bone-chillingly simple and direct: can take wallet, phone, and car. Shoot and go. When the fluctuating price of Bitcoin caused the value of his payment to dip below the agreed-upon amount, he even sent more money to make sure the transaction was complete. Luckily for his intended victim, the FBI received a tip about the plot. They were able to trace the Bitcoin payments back to a cryptocurrency exchange and, from there, to James Wan. They arrested him before any harm could be done. These cases show a terrifying modern reality. The anonymity of Tor and crypto has created a marketplace for murder, even if it's mostly smoke and mirrors. You don't need mob connections anymore. All you need is a grudge, a browser, and some Bitcoin. The process itself creates a dangerous psychological distance, turning a human being into a name on a screen and their life into a dollar amount. For every plot the police manage to foil, the frightening truth remains. There are real people browsing these deadly sites, ready to pay the price to have someone deleted from their lives. The horror of the dark web isn't always physical violence. Sometimes it's a slow, quiet, and insidious psychological warfare that dismantles a person's life, their sanity, and their sense of safety, all without the attacker ever laying a hand on them. This creeping, invisible terror can be just as devastating. No case demonstrates this better than that of Dr. Matthew Falder. On the surface, Matthew Falder was a picture of resounding success, a brilliant postdoctoral geophysicist with a degree from Cambridge University and a research post at the University of Birmingham. He was respected by his colleagues and lived a life that, from the outside, seemed completely normal. But Falder was living a dark double life. Online, he wasn't Dr. Falder. He was 666 Devil, or Evil Mind, a sadistic and methodical master manipulator who spent nearly a decade running a campaign of pure psychological torture against dozens of victims around the world. His method was cold, calculated, and systematic. He would find his victims on regular, surface web websites, often targeting people in online communities who were already sharing vulnerabilities or insecurities. He would pose as a female artist or photographer, gain their trust over weeks or months, and eventually convince them to send intimate or compromising photos, pretending they were for artistic illustrations or projects. The moment he had the images, the friendly artist vanished, replaced by an anonymous, relentless blackmailer. The demands were crippling and never-ending. Falder would demand more and more photos, each one more degrading and humiliating than the last. He controlled his victims with the constant threat of sending the images to their family, their friends, their schools, and their employers. He was a master of leveraging shame and fear. One of his victims described the experience as a living nightmare. She stated, "Every day when I woke up, there would be a message. When I came home from school, there would be a message." Her life was no longer her own. It was governed by the constant, sickening dread of the next demand from her unseen tormentor. Falder wasn't just a blackmailer driven by a simple fetish. He was a profound sadist who reveled in his victim's pain. He shared the images he extorted on the most depraved, hardcore forums on the dark web, where anonymous users discussed and shared material centered on extreme psychological abuse and degradation. He would post his victims' photos and ask other anonymous users for ideas on how to torture them further. He crowdsourced new ways to inflict misery, turning their private suffering into a form of public entertainment for a community of like-minded tormentors. For years, he was a ghost. He used sophisticated anonymizing tools and boasted to his victims that he could never be caught. But he was wrong. A massive, complex international investigation led by the UK's National Crime Agency, NCA, and involving agencies from the US and Europe painstakingly began to piece together the digital breadcrumbs he left behind. The investigation was a technological marathon, taking years to connect disparate accounts, trace IP addresses through complex chains, and analyze his linguistic patterns. They finally unmasked the sadistic puppeteer 666 Devil as the respected Cambridge academic. The judge who sentenced him captured the shocking duality of his life perfectly, stating, "No one who knew you above ground had an inkling of what you were doing below the surface." Matthew Falder was ultimately sentenced to 32 years in prison for his crimes against 46 victims. The lead investigator from the NCA remarked that in 30 years of law enforcement, he had never seen an offender whose only motive was to inflict such a degree of drawn-out pain and misery. Falder's case is a terrifying look at how the dark web can be weaponized to destroy a person from the inside out. The scars aren't physical, but they are deep and permanent, leaving victims with post-traumatic stress, anxiety, and a profound distrust of the world. It proves that the most dangerous monsters aren't always hiding in the shadows with a weapon. Sometimes they're sitting behind a screen with a respectable job and a friendly face, using the web's anonymity to play God with the lives of others. From the persistent and terrifying legend of the Red Room, to the cold, transactional reality of a hitman's marketplace, to the slow, agonizing torment inflicted by a digital puppeteer, these stories pull back the curtain on a part of the internet that was specifically designed to stay hidden. They are not all urban legends. They are a disturbing mix of myth, dangerous scams, and meticulously documented crimes, all born from the powerful combination of human depravity and digital anonymity. These cases force us to confront an uncomfortable truth about the world we live in. The same technology that empowers activists and connects us across the globe can also be a shield for the monstrous. The dark web isn't inherently evil. It's a tool, a reflection of its users. But in the wrong hands, it becomes a workshop for creating real-world nightmares, a place where the worst human impulses can be cultivated, shared, and acted upon. These stories serve as a stark and necessary warning. They show that the darkest parts of the human mind have found a new and powerful home online, and the consequences of what happens in that digital darkness are all too real, leaving a trail of shattered lives in the physical world. Thank you for watching.